And yeah, to put it politely, there's a few head-scratching moments. When I first saw it, I had to check twice. I was expecting changes. All the suggestions were that he realised, he understood that the team had been jaded. They hadn't been playing at the normal high-intensity manner recently, and that subsequently there was going to be changes made. People talked about Matt Targett coming in. People talking about Anthony Gordon coming in, perhaps coming in for Miggy Almiron, who looked tired. Willick coming in for Sean Longstaff, who looked like they needed a break. And certainly, I think everybody thought Callum Wilson would be taken out of the firing line, and Isak had earned his opportunity based upon an impressive showing. I know he probably hasn't done it since his injury, starting the game, but certainly coming off the bench against Manchester United, against the Manchester Reds. We all thought that Isak would be starting, but there's been no change in formation. News Fabian Schär, he misses out through an injury. Get more on that shortly. But rather than move Dan Burn to centre back, where he's performed admirably, you think about Anfield away and the likes, and bringing Matt Targett in at left back. No, he's continued with Dan Burn at left back, which has been problematic because opposition teams have targeted that space in behind the left back recently. He's persevered with Dan Burn at left back, a centre back playing out there, and he's brought Jamal Lascelles back in. The skipper comes back in and starts. And don't get me wrong, fingers crossed, it's a masterstroke, it goes well. He's sat, he has waited patiently on the bench. He hasn't had many starts this season, but that against Manchester City's flair players, their attacking players, scares the shit out of me, if I'm being totally honest. A difficult task has been made even more difficult for me by the defence. It's great to see Nick Pope back, of course. Going forward, great also to see that Bruno's okay after he came off injured in the final last weekend. But St. Maximin as well, how have you got to feel for him? He's missed out a chunk through injury, just getting back, a run of a few games, getting back up to full speed, which he always needs when he comes back from these injuries. He seems to be making progress, and then he's going to get dropped. And he spoke before about the fact he's had no problem about sitting on the bench when other players in front of him are in form. He's got to wait his turn, but when he's got his turn and now he's being taken out, that can't sit very well with him for a player who wants to play the majority of the time, week in and week out. And I just felt that Anthony Gordon was going to perhaps come in on the opposite flank, or certainly replace Miggy, and then you could have had St. Maximin maybe on the right, Gordon on the left, or either or. You can interchange them really easily. When St. Maximin first come, he's played out there before on the right, so that wouldn't have been an issue for us. But no, he's been dropped, which puts major question marks over his longer term future. And then up top, again, all the talk was about Callum Wilson not being at his best. He hasn't been at his best since the World Cup. He's come back, he has had an illness, he's then missed training, and it has showed out on the park. I love Callum Wilson to bits, I love all these players to bits, but it's a little bit of a head scratching thing when he's, Callum Wilson didn't do a great deal in the entirety of that, game last weekend. He hasn't done a great deal recently. He is bang out of form. And you've got Isak there, you've spent £65 million on, yet he's not starting. I don't understand that. To me, if you spent that money on him, it's for a regular first team starter, so why not give him this opportunity? In the same way that he came in against Liverpool and performed fantastically, scored a legitimate brace, which obviously one was taken off, one was chalked off, rather brown bag style, chalked off. Should never have been fucking chalked off. But yeah, if you're Isak, you're scratching your head on the bench. If you're St. Maximum, you're probably not in the right frame of mind. You're probably pissed off. You think, I've just got back, I had a decent performance, I was one of the better performers last weekend, and I've been benched. Yet other players who are bang out of form continue in the team. I hope fatigue again doesn't catch up and play a part, because like I touched on before and in the preview, just Miggy has looked fatigued. Sean Longstaff has looked fatigued. There are other players. Dan Byrne has looked fatigued. And yet we go again with them in a game where we are going to be doing a lot of running and a lot of chasing back and a lot of all hands, all stations, all hands on deck. However you want to, to call it. It's probably going to be a lot of, everybody throwing everything into a defensive operation and looking to counter-attack as much as possible. So yeah, surprising by Eddie Howe. Again, it's not a criticism of Eddie Howe. It's not a criticism of any of the players who've come in who haven't. You can say that you had a different opinion to what somebody else did. I'm just saying that I personally, based upon what he said in the press conference, what noises have been made by other journalists and people in the know and all this sort of thing, I am surprised at that team. And going into the game, certainly I've not got loads of confidence about the outcome. I was hoping everything crossed for a draw, and I'm still got everything crossed. I'm just going back now, being grafting this morning, getting back to watch the game. Kyle's there, so there will be footage from inside the stadium around. We're doing a vlog and everything else, so that'll be up on the channel later on. But just fingers crossed this doesn't come back to bite us in the arse. I really hope not, and I hope that the likes of St Maximum aren't too disappointed to be taken out of the firing line. I'm sure Eddie will come out afterwards and explain his thinking, his thoughts. Perhaps he wants more players who will track back, who can track back and are more comfortable in doing so. Perhaps that's part of the thinking behind it. But yeah, first impressions, a little bit shocked, but as ever, as soon as the game kicks off, you're 1000% behind the lads who are pulling on that shirt, and I hope Callum Wilson scores a hat-trick. I hope we keep a clean sheet, and I hope Lascelles is back to the Lascelles of a few seasons ago and not of the last year and a bit. So yeah, everything crossed. Please getting ready now for the kick-off. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe, follow Magpie 24/7, keep it tuned, and I'll speak to you later.